I would ask you all just for a moment, if we could do this for about 15 seconds. Could you please help me in thanking this panel by clapping for 15 seconds? Ready, go. Okay, thank you. We're very excited to have this panel with us today, and we're very thankful for all of you participating here. The information that's been shared, of course, is enormous in its scope, and it sets a pathway, I think, for the next couple of days of discussions. We will have a chance to talk about this and much, much more in the next 48 hours. We look forward to all of you joining us. I know the day is late, and I know you've been here and very attentive for all of it. It's been an exciting day. Before we leave, however, and based on the discussions we've had thus far, or the presentations from our distinguished panel members, I do want to just open this up to the audience in case there are, let's say, no more than two or three poignant questions that must be asked now, or you will not sleep tonight. If you have any of those types of questions, we are happy to have you ask them and challenge our panel members. Please make them challenging so you make them stumble a little bit. Okay, we don't want to make them easy softball pitches so they can knock them out of the park. Make them tough. Anybody got one?
Well, the bar will still open in 25 minutes, so we have some
time. Right, the bar will open in 25 minutes. Therefore, let's get this wrapped up. Yes, ma'am, in the middle back there. Do we have a microphone? Okay, we don't have a microphone. But can you please stand up, shout your question at the top of your lungs. There we go. Microphone's on the way. And please introduce yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Sahana. I'm from Terry University, and I would like to thank all the panelists for such insightful thoughts. My question is for Professor Hoffman. And it was a really interesting thought that you felt having renewable energy increase its value is more of a social issue. And I would like to point out the state where I come from. Basically, there is this concept of prosumers where the consumers are allowed to sell excess solar power to the grid. And it so happened that after one stage, the government kept giving more subsidies, and they kept purchasing power from the prosumers at a higher cost. And then after a few years, it happened that the transmission and the distribution companies started running under loss because of that policy. And now they have stopped issuing, licenses to more prosumers who can sell power to the grid. And even if they allow, it's at a reduced cost. So this is basically discouraging people to go and install rooftop solar PV at a larger scale, and where they thought they could earn profit. These days, it's not making much sense for them to make such an high investment. So what do you think about this crisis? Is it more of an, should we have more changes with the policy so that we encourage more prosumers to proactively come forward and take it up as a social cause to turn towards renewable energy? Thank you.
Now we're really sharing experiences, I think. We had, with the last government coalition, exactly the same type of crisis, where the word was out of the social parasites, which were the owners of photovoltaic roof plants, and then the policy was changed. But what was the reason behind it? The reason behind it was that if you install some kind of regulation, what you in fact do is control theoretical things. So you are devising a controller on an economical system, and then this economical system starts to react. And if you don't do the controller right, as you know from technical systems, then the system runs away. And exactly that happened. And then you start to fiddle with the controller and work against it. And then you decelerate the process, yeah, and then this is kind of an iterative process. So in the end, you can not reproach anybody for doing this because it really needs a clever insight into economical dynamics. So what it means, also in India, one should continue to strive to devise the correct economical controlling mechanisms in order that these small investors have their business case. in that particular moment in Germany, it was exactly the discussion of preserving private ownership. There's a German word for it. I say it for the German participants here, Bestandsschutz. So if you touch on the investment of anybody, you completely destroy the confidence in the governmental bodies. And that should never happen. The word was out just for a very short time, and then the government understand they couldn't touch this, otherwise they would completely destroy the process. And now we're somehow rolling back exactly for PV rooftop. I don't see a problem why there should be continuous investment, because the investment is usually sufficiently small. For wind turbines, as I said earlier, that's a different story, because you don't do it as a single person. Yeah. So I hope in India they will find a way to come back to involving the prosumers.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffman. Thank you very much for your question. Do we have a second question in the audience? I can take one more, maybe two if it's short. Yes, the gentleman here. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
I'm Upen Shah, representing Reliance Industries. I'm a chartered accountant, hardcore financials. So the entire session has been very much educative to me. What I have understood from the morning, that forecasting, scheduling, balancing, those are the problems. Then my question is, if we have a cost-effective battery storage or effective battery energy storage device, would it solve most of the problems? I don't know to whom should I ask, so anybody can from the panel can reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Simon, you want to take a shot?
Yeah, maybe one way to answer this is by analogy. So let's say somebody comes to a doctor and has a very light cold, and then the doctor would prescribe the toughest last line of defense antibiotic that they have available. Is it likely to cure the cold? Yes, if it's the right cold. Is it a reasonable way to treat this cold? Probably not. So while batteries can be quite effective at mitigating some of the challenges we do see on the system, at their current cost, and the cost would have to come down orders of magnitude, they're not the most cost-effective way. There are a number of niche applications to provide high-value services, combined value streams that already make them cost-effective today, but these are niches, and there's much cheaper ways, such as extracting flexibility from existing assets to integrate renewables, to actually surprisingly high shares.
Thank you, Simon. It's always a unique and interesting sort of algorithm of sorts to understand the offsetting positions between efficiencies and economies, reaching the outcomes intended while minimizing cost. And it's not always intuitive that that's what we're trying to do. Achieve some intended outcomes, making sure that we don't overspend so that we have more resources to achieve other outcomes in the aftermath. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think we have time for one more, and so I'll solicit members of the audience to do that. I think we've had somebody from academia, we've had a gentleman from the nonprofit community, and sir, right here in the front, would you share with us your question? You introduce yourself, please.
Helge Ørdal from NSOE. I am interested in the big goal, and for me the big goal is environmental issues of the end result is improving climate change. Now climate change is primarily low CO2. What isn't discussed here is the other big source, potential big source of nuclear. And in Europe, there's a big split in this context. In India, is future nuclear dead or not? And I have also challenged the new nuclear industry with the support of our big poet, Shakespeare, because they had 3 challenges for the future in the nuclear industry to get it revived. And I added a 4th one, which was the very topic that we talked about, flexibility. And we added it to be or not to be, that is the question, because there is no nuclear without them being flexible. But I do know that nuclear can, at least technically, be fully flexible over the full operating range and can even provide all the frequency services. In India, is nuclear in the future dead or not?
Thank you, sir, for your question. A poignant one, probably a challenging one in my estimation. I don't know who wants to bite this off. Did you want to target any particular member of the panel? Or you're happy to have anybody? Jacqueline, you want to start off with that? No? Okay. Simon, you want to go back to you and perhaps, yeah.
I can only clarify that every time I write nuclear in my page, it becomes unclear. So that's where I stop, somehow the spelling I mistake.
Yeah, maybe just to say, I think renewables integration to some degree, while I absolutely agree with the imperative of fighting climate change, I think the question of renewables integration is actually moving into countries where the primary objective might not be fighting climate change, simply because they've become quite cost effective. So I think also in the Indian context, affordability of energy is a primary concern, and I think recognizing that cost effective integration is one way to also meet this objective. I think if nuclear wants to play a role in the decarbonization of the system, it is simply, one, a question of cost and demonstrating that it can be cost effective. And I think right now the challenges, not only of new nuclear, but existing nuclear, if you look at the United States, for example, are actually on the basis of the economics. And the other is public acceptance to move forward.
Thank you. The answer to that, of course, is never complete. But that's the beginning part of it, and there will be opportunities to have more discussions of similar nature throughout the next couple of days. We are very, very happy to have had Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Reyna, Simon, Jacqueline, SK, Suni, and Marcus with us today and share their views with you. We are even more happy to have had each and every one of you here in the room with us to pelt us with these questions, but to be a part of this discussion. The next 2 days really is an opportunity for everybody to participate in the discussion. There is an incredible amount of critical mass of intelligence around these issues in the room today. There will be more people joining us tomorrow and the following day. We hope you will tell your colleagues and your friends via social media, by telephone, and in person that they should be at this if they haven't shown up today. I want to thank all the folks who have organized today, namely my team over at USAID, our colleagues and great counterparts at GIZ for their work, the organizations that we support that helped implement this. Thank you very much. I didn't introduce myself earlier, remiss, and I'm sorry. I'm Michael Satin. I'm the Director of the Office of Clean Energy and Environment at the U.S. Agency for International Development at the American Embassy here in Delhi. It has been a profound pleasure. Thank you, and we'll see you for drinks at the bar.